Hey everyone, Ashley here. Today I'm going to go through some tips for the RACGP OSCE. This is by no means an exhaustive or definitive guide. I'm not the greatest GP or educator, but these are just a few of my tips based from sitting the exams 4 years ago and also now being a supervisor and an OSCE examiner for the last couple of years. So if you're about to sit the OSCE, that means you've passed the written, so congratulations. To get to this point, I'm going to assume that your clinical knowledge is sufficient and that you have basic history and examination skills to get you through medical school and that you survived at least 12 months of general practice so far. The OSCE is supposed to reflect the typical session of general practice in Australia, but that said, there are a few things you can do to optimise your performance and get the most out of each 8-minute station and those 2 long stations. Now I'm going to start off with what I think is the most important tip and the one that you've probably heard over and over again for any type of examination, and that is read the question. Now, it's the mistake I hate to see because it's such a simple thing and it can unravel the whole station. If the question asks you to explain the diagnosis to the examiner, then turn to the examiner and explain the diagnosis. If the station says that investigation results won't be available, then please stop asking for investigation results. So use your 3 minutes reading time wisely. You should know what you need to do before you enter that station. And also how to roughly manage your time. For example, if you need to get through history, examination, investigations, management, you know that you need to move pretty quickly to get through all of that before you run out of time. Now, the candidate instructions don't typically give you a lot of clinical information, but you can at least determine the demographics of the patient to get an idea of what else you might need to run through during the station. So one more time with me, read the question. Now we should probably back up a bit and take a look at how the OSCE is run. Like all of the RACGP exams, the OSCE is standardised across Australia. So that means every candidate across Australia will have exactly the same stations, the same histories given, the same marking schemes. Now the person you take the history from is a GP acting as a patient, and the examiner is also a GP. If you see a third person in the room, don't freak out. That's usually another GP examining the examiners, so their quality control. So it's really important to have a system that can get as much information out of these stations as possible. So it's basically your history and examination. Now, everyone has their own style and method of conducting a consult, but I would be suggesting starting each station exactly the same way, if a history is required. So the reading time is finished, you walk through the door, flash the examiner your badge and sit down. Introduce yourself to the patient and then ask, how can I help you today? The patient will give you the presenting complaint, which is typically a sentence or two explaining why they've come to the doctors. So no matter what they say, the next question should be an open-ended question to get more information. So something along the lines of, tell me more. Now, so the patient will give you a bunch of useful information, which is the history of presenting complaint. So it's important to let them talk. They'll give you lots of information. Don't interrupt them until they've stopped talking. From here, you can ask further questions, usually closed, focused questions to rule in and out red flags and to figure out the diagnosis. Now, even if the instructions say, for example, the patient has presented with a cough, don't immediately ask them, how's the cough going? Does it have sputum? Always start off with, how can I help you? I know I've been caught out in regular consulting before where I've thought of patients come back to discuss their test results, but in actual fact, they've got a whole another agenda, and you don't find that out until the end of the consult. So same thing applies here. Similarly, make sure you know your system for examination. A lot of the time you're going to be asking the examiner for examination findings. So again, to start off the examination, you'd request for general appearance and the vital signs, and then work your way through after that. It can be a good idea to state the system of the examination first and then go through the details. It shows you know how to do the examinations methodically. It's also useful to do this as some stations might only require you, for example, to say respiratory exam and you'll be given the findings, whereas other stations you might have to ask specifically for things like auscultation, percussion, for the examiner to release that information to you. When you're asked to request relevant examination findings, I think it's rare to be penalised for asking for too much. The main issue with that is that you'll just lose a lot of time asking for things that might not be relevant. In terms of performing examinations, it might be just part of an examination or modified a little bit, because it's very rare just to have only the examination as the OSCE station. Usually you'll need a bit of history, the examination, and possibly the investigations and management too. And remember, you're performing these examinations on well adults, GPs, so the examination findings have to be reproducible or easily acted out. But technically they can still throw anything at you. You do have to be a bit more judicious with investigations. You can't order CTs and MRIs for everyone. You want to demonstrate that you can order investigations appropriately, cost effectively as well. Now finally, the other most important point I think is practice. The more that comes naturally to you, the less you're going to miss out when you're under pressure. So practice in your study groups, on your family members, on your pet. Now a lot of people suggest practicing while you consult, and I think that's a great idea too. There are OSCE preparation courses, mock OSCEs, available from a number of providers now. Now if you're not part of an RTP or feel like you need more feedback or guidance, then I can understand enrolling in one of these courses. So that's it, just a few small tips. You can find more resources online. I think start off with your RTP first. There's also a good podcast, The Good GP by Sam Manger. I'll put the link in the description. And there's also various Facebook groups, which you're no doubt aware of. If you found this video useful, then hit the like button. If you want to keep seeing more of these videos for whatever reason, then subscribe. Hopefully see you soon.